In our conversation with Alan Wilson, he just recently announced he is running for Attorney General of South Carolina. Alan, wanted to ask you, when you decide that you're deciding you want to run for Attorney General, I'm sure there's a lot of soul searching that goes on. Take us through that. What made you come to the decision that you want to be the next Attorney General of the state?
Well, the first thing you do when you soul search is you go and talk to your soulmate. and I went to my wife and we discussed it. And she was my first supporter. She was the first person that said, I think you make a great Attorney General. You have my 100% support. And then I brought in the rest of the family and we discussed it and everyone was on board. So that's where it started.
With your family, of course. Where do you want to take this position? This office. What will be on your plate, number one, with you?
Well, first of all, there's several issues I want to address as Attorney General. There's a multitude of issues I want to address, but some of the ones that right now are really at the forefront of my mind. Right now, we have a case, a water war with North Carolina. Everyone's heard about the Catawba River fight with North Carolina. This current Attorney General has done an excellent job in representing this state and bringing this issue to the forefront. And we have a situation here where a northern neighbor state is diverting millions and millions of gallons of water from the Catawba River daily. What makes this such an important issue is that since the 1790s, only 136 cases have been brought under original jurisdiction by the United States Supreme Court. So that tells you how important this issue is, that the Supreme Court would grab this issue up like that without letting it go through the court system. Secondly, the ramifications, if we don't see this thing through till the end, can be devastating for South Carolinians. If we fail to win this court battle, you're going to have North Carolina diverting millions of gallons of waters out of the Catawba River. You have Georgia looking on toward the Savannah River. And, we're downriver from two states. The rivers run into South Carolina. And so communities and people who live near those rivers and use those rivers for utilities, for recreation, for business, for commerce, if that water is diverted, it can have a devastating impact on South Carolinians. Another issue is law enforcement. I've been in law enforcement ever since I decided I wanted to serve as a prosecutor years ago. And when I got into law enforcement, I developed a passion for working with police officers, investigators, detectives, victims advocates, and just working with the people. And so I believe that one of the most important things for the Attorney General is to develop strong bonds and friendships with local law enforcement, with the sheriffs, with the police chiefs, with the local law enforcement officers. One problem that I think we have in this state is that a lot of times we have our men and women who are very brave and courageous. They're out there fighting crime on the streets, and that's what they're paid to do, and that's what they're trained to do. But there are times when they're supposed to come into the courtroom, maybe in a magistrate court, to prosecute a case that they, arrest that they made. Perhaps it might have been a driving under the influence or criminal domestic violence. In a lot of counties, the solicitor's office won't have a budget for a prosecutor to prosecute that, and neither will the sheriff's office. So and the current Attorney General had a pro bono program where he brought private lawyers in, trained them how to prosecute, and use that. What I would like to do is, and I've talked to several sheriffs who are supporting me, and they think this is a wonderful idea, is to have quarterly, biannually, and annually refresher training for our law enforcement officers. We can't turn them into lawyers, but we can make them very effective prosecutors. We can teach them about the rules of evidence, keep them freshened up on that. We can teach them about courtroom procedure. So they walk in there and they're sitting with a victim, that they're not basically overwhelmed by some of the courtroom procedures that will be brought in front of them. And also to make them better investigators, because they just won't think about the arrest is over when the handcuffs go on. They'll be thinking about, this is what's going to need to happen in a courtroom months or even years from now when this case is prosecuted. So we teach them to think like prosecutors too, and that'll help get the conviction rate up.
We recently had a representative of the Department of Juvenile Justice here on Newswatch, and we were talking about how the crime rate, the juvenile crime rate, has dropped here in this state. But he said the one area of crime with children in particular that has not seen a drop is gangs. What is the key to fighting gangs in South Carolina?
Well, first of all, I am glad that you brought that up, because that was the very next issue I was going to talk about, that is, gangs infiltrating our schools and neighborhoods. You see it is very prevalent. Just across the river with my home community of Lexington, you see it. I think the first thing to do is intervention. If you start talking to kids about gangs when they're in the 10th grade, you've missed them. You got to get these kids in the 3rd grade. That's where the gangs get them, when they're very young and they're very impressionable. So we've got to create community programs. We got to get families involved, and where there are no families, we got to get community people involved with these kids. We got to show them that there's a better way. And I would be for any type of program that would help show these kids an alternative to a gang life.
Henry McMaster made a name for himself really with dog fighting in South Carolina, with fighting that crime. Is gangs, is that really what will be your number one thing for us being gangs in this state?
The number one thing for me is what best serves the people of South Carolina. Right now, gangs seems to be a serious threat to the safety and well-being of South Carolina families. So it will absolutely be at the top of my list, along with the water fight with North Carolina.
Okay. You have experience with McMaster's office, obviously. How will that experience and what have you done in his office that will get you ready if you become the next Attorney General?
Well, first of all, I have a military background, so I'm going to use a military analogy. I served a year in Iraq. I've been boots on the ground with other soldiers. I've served as a line officer. And one thing I've learned is that in order to be a good general or a great general, you had to once be a lieutenant. You have to know how your decisions up the chain of command affect people down on the ground executing your plan. And so I came from the trenches. I came from the people out on the battlefield. I came from that office. Some of the best attorneys in this state, some of the most well-respected attorneys I've ever prosecuted with came out of that office, and some are still there. There's a great group of people, so I know the potential of that office. And having come from the trenches, I know how the policies affect the people, and I know how to take a case from the beginning to the end. So like I said, I was once a foot soldier, so I know how to be a foot soldier, and to be a great leader, you had to once be a great follower, and I followed a great Attorney General in Henry McMaster, and I think I'd make a great Attorney General myself.
You want to be the Attorney General of the people of South Carolina, whatever their needs are. So when you're going out campaigning, what are they telling you that they want to see you do?
Well, what I'm hearing most of is that people want to be communicated with. They want to have ownership, and they want to be invested in their Attorney General. So I'm making one of the things I'm bringing to this table is I'm going to bring unprecedented accessibility to the Attorney General's office. If you're a South Carolinian and you want to be able to reach me, I will make it very easy to reach you. I will make myself available by cell phone, by email, and if there's a problem, I'm willing to come to you to sit down across from your table and talk about the issues that are affecting you most. And that seems to be resonating with people, is that, wow, an Attorney General that will come to my house or to my office and sit down and hear me out and help me with my problem.
Alan Wilson, good luck.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Candidates for governor, they will debate the issues this week on Tuesday.